Alex?
Yes, dear, I have no
Yeah.
opinion. You're right. I apologize. What was I thinking?
So I just put up with what I got.
A little bit more about how they value the wife's happy.
Well, yes, it is.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grand Traverse County Resource Management Administration Committee meeting. We are at the Government Center, 400 Boardman, Traverse City. Today is Wednesday, June 11th. It is just a little bit after 6 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. The first, if you have a cell phone, if you could put that on silent or vibrate, we would appreciate it. And we will start off with the opening ceremonies of the pledge, and Commissioner Dan Lathrop, would you lead us in that, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Would the clerk take the roll call attendance, please?
Commissioner Rennie?
Present.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer? Here. Lathrop?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Here. All right, we are all here. Next item is the approval of the May 14th, 2014 minutes of the RMA committee.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the May 14th minutes as presented.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Wheelock, seconded by Commissioner Rennie to approve the minutes of the May 14th, 2014 session. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right. We now come to our first public comment. We do have one at the closer toward the end of the meeting. And if the clerk could read the first public comment guidelines, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, you've heard the general guidelines for public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Seeing no indication of public interest at this time, we will close the first public comment. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. Before we get a motion on the floor, I would like to move the unfinished business to special orders of business for Garfield Township tax appeal to accommodate requests by Supervisor Chuck Korn. So let's put that under special orders of business. And we have a memo from Dave Benda on our desk, and that would
New business?
that would have to be new. Yeah, let's do that, new business. Request for temporary clerical assistance.
Where will that go? New business, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All right, moved by Commissioner Wheelock, seconded by Commissioner Max Bauer to approve the agenda with moving Garfield Township to special orders of business, and new business would be the request for temporary clerical assistance by the memo from our county administrator. Discussion on the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. We have an agenda. Next is the consent calendar. If the clerk could read that for us, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. 1, Conservation District Monthly Report. 2, Resource Recovery Managers Report. 3, Road Commission Report. B, approval. 1, Hospital Finance Authority reappointment recommendation.
Okay, the clerk has read the consent calendar. Does any member of the public wish to move an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, does any of the county commissioners wish to move an item from the consent calendar? Commissioner Rennie.
6A3,
6A3?
Road Commissioner Report.
All righty. Thank you, Commissioner Rennie. Anyone else?
Motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Lemkool, seconded by Commissioner Thomas to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 3, item A, item 3, under that receive and file Road Commission report. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Rennie?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Consent calendar is approved. We now move on to special orders of business, and as you know, we've moved Garfield Township Tax Appeal, the agenda item to that area, so I'll just call on our County Administrator Dave Benda and Supervisor Chuck Horn.
Mr. Thomas is raising his hand.
Commissioner Thomas, yes.
Your agenda calls for action on the consent calendar.
That's,
Road Commission.
I understand that, but that's item 8. Item 7 is special orders of business. They
moved it.
They moved it on us, Commissioner Thomas.
Sorry.
That's the way it used to be. We used to finish the consent calendar and go right into it. And then somebody put special orders of business a couple months ago on that. Yeah.
And we moved it.
So we're going to special orders of business. So whoever would like to take the lead, Dave, you want to take the lead
Okay, we
on that?
discussed this last week, and at the back of your packet, which has now been moved to the front, there's a memo to you dated May 28th, talking about, basically taking into account the comments that were made at the last meeting. Basically, we're looking for you to approve an attached policy that is attached to the memo that says that the state of Michigan gets involved in the defense of one of these local unit tax appeals, that if the local unit requests, the county will consider financial participation in the case. We'll basically go through a process where the board chairman, the equalization director, the treasurer, the administrator, controller, and the finance director will review the case with the local assessor. And if we determine that the potential for success is high, we'll make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding county participation in the appeal. And we'll consider basically reimbursing up to 50% of the local unit's share of the costs of the defense of the case. And our maximum would be limited to 25% of the general fund revenue for the first year of the appeal. So in this case, it would be 25% of $57,000. In that case, it would be, the maximum for us in this case would be $14,250. If the case cost $40,000 and we enacted this policy, we would reimburse 50% of the local unit share, which would be 50% of $20,000 or $10,000. So the township would pay 10, we would pay 10, and the state would pay 20 toward a $40,000 bill on this case.
Okay. Comments from the commissioners?
And that's also contingent that the State Attorney General's office also is a participant in defending the agenda.
Correct.
The appeal.
Is that in this policy?
Yes.
It is.
All right, okay. Let's take it to the commission, and then we'll ask Administrator or Supervisor Corn if he's got anything.
Go ahead and let him go.
All right, Supervisor Corn, do you have anything on this?
Sounds like a lovely policy.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'm all in favor of us helping the townships in these tribunal cases. However, the way this policy is, it requires that the state of Michigan get into it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. I've never seen it before. And what it's going to do is it'll limit so that this is the only case we're ever going to have. Because they're not going to get into any, they haven't, and they won't. The only reason why they're doing it is because the amount's so great. I think that we should set a policy where we'll help any township that wants to fight an appeal, because most of them, especially the smaller ones, when they get an appeal, they just stipulate because they don't have the money to fight it. And not only that, if they win, they're only collecting $1 million. Well, in fact, it's rolled back. So it's not worth it to them to fight these cases. A good, for instance, would be, we'll say Mayfield Township. They have a lot of oil equipment in there, and if the oil company decided they want to come in with their battery of lawyers and have a tribunal case, the township isn't going to fight it. So, and when that happens, we, as a county and township and everything, we lose tax base. And look, I'm all in favor of this, but not with that part about it that says the state has got to get in it first, because all that's doing is making one case out of it. That's all. That's the only one we're ever going to see.
All right, Commissioner Maxwell.
And I think we should help the townships out whenever we can. But this idea of having a group review it to see if it's a good case, like I think this one is. I don't think they can lose this one.
No.
But I just, hey, if we're going to help one, we've got to make it so others will get into.
All right, Commissioner Maxwell.
To a certain extent, I agree with Commissioner Thomas, but I don't think that that's what our policy should say. I think we need to start with an extremely restrictive policy, one where we're not saying we're going to write a blank check to all the townships who think that their assessor is right and the individual property owner is wrong. We still have the opportunity to look at these cases individually. We still have an opportunity for townships to bring forth their case and say this is fair, this is unfair, this is why we think it's fair, this is why we think it's unfair, whatever. But if we're going to begin with a policy, I think it needs to be extremely narrow and restrictive. Otherwise, we're just writing a blank check, and that's what concerns me. Clearly, the state of Michigan thinks that this is not a fair case for the property owner. The state of Michigan thinks that this property owner has been fairly assessed. All the documentation that we have received says this property owner has been fairly assessed. The reason I'm stepping forward right now is because if this property owner has been fairly assessed and they're stepping forward and saying we want a reduction anyway, that puts a burden on everyone else, and that's not right. I'm in support of a restrictive policy to begin with. That doesn't stop us from looking at individual cases as we move forward.
All right, Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, I think this is a great start on this, but also, you know, after reading this a number of times, I come up with a couple of questions. That we had established a policy to allow our prosecuting attorney to get involved with any of these if they needed. So that's kind of defending the tax appeal. So we've already got that as part of our policy. And I wonder if we shouldn't have put that in here some way. And the other thing is that the only cost share that we're really looking at in this particular appeal is the appraisal. And so I'm just wondering if maybe we ought to put in something in here that might allude to 25% of the appraisal cost in the defense of what we're doing. Because the defense is being taken care of already in the cost share that way. And we don't want to, we're already going to share in that. And then we got whatever the appraisal. So the only time we're going to put any money into this, even for Garfield Township, is if they're requested to do an appraisal. So this would be a piece of that appraisal. So I'm not sure that maybe we ought to maybe just tweak this just a little bit, because then we can still be tight, but it still gives us a little more direction to any future boards down the road.
All right. Dave, you wanted to comment on that?
I don't know,
and then we'll go
maybe Chris wants to,
to Chris?
Yeah, we did intervene in the city cases, and our motions to intervene were denied. But we're still on board with helping when we
Right.
can. We are. You know, we can help in other capacities as well.
All right, Dave, did you have a
no,
comment?
that was pretty much the comment, because
All right.
when Herb,
Commissioner, anyone else? Let's go with Commissioner Wheelock and then Commissioner Rennie.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, in 34 years I've been doing county and township, I've never seen the state get involved in a tax tribunal case. I've never heard of such a thing. I'm wondering, you know, I'm not exactly sure why they chose this one to get in on. No, because tax tribunals have been these kind of numbers before, and they've never chosen to be in. You know, the most common tax tribunal cases that townships face are utilities, and they're huge dollar amounts. And what's strange about those is that the utilities declare in their statement of inventory to the township what the value of their property is in the township. But then when they're assessed, based on that value, they appeal the assessment. You know,
That is interesting.
Which is kind of, you know, a little bit of an oxymoron, I think. But, you know, I'm not sure that requirement that the state be involved should be in here. You know, I've just never seen it happen before, and I don't think you'll ever see it happen again, or it's not very likely it's going to happen again. I have no problem with the county representative boards as they're talking about evaluating the appeal. But, you know, the one thing that we have to remember is that all of these appeals have to be handled by the individual townships. And while this is a huge piece of money, $11.4 million, you know, if we take one of the smaller townships that I've represented in Grant or Mayfield or Union, you know, something that's $10,000 is just as devastating to them as this $11 million thing is to Garfield Township. So I believe that we should be, the policy should be committed to assist the townships in handling appeals. You know, I don't have any problem with the criteria of which ones we're going to do, but either we're going to help them deal with the tax tribunals or we don't. You know, the townships get the smallest piece of this money that comes from that tax assessment. You know, the county gets more, the schools get way more money, and they don't participate at all. You know, I think the county should participate, but I believe the county should participate in all appeals or be available to assist townships with all appeals to the Michigan State Tax Tribunal.
All right, we got Commissioner Rennie and then Commissioner Thomas.
I think why the state's getting involved, because this is not a problem unique to this county. It's a problem that exists all over the state. The fact that the state took this stance and is going to get involved tells me the state is aware of this problem, is going to try to do something about it. Now, as far as special privileges for certain units of government, I agree with you entirely on that. What's good for one should be good for all, especially in these smaller townships. I don't know if the state would get involved in some of those lower values, so that puts them at a disadvantage right there. On the other hand, we don't want a horde of people down here trying to get the county to pay for what they are responsible for. And somehow, if we can limit that by this panel, this group that would assess each one, I guess it might work.
Okay, Commissioner Thomas.
I think having a panel will answer that. The other thing is, if we do set a policy, which I'm in favor of, but I'm not in favor of the state of Michigan being part of it, but if we do set a policy, I think that's going to keep a few people from filing all the time. You know, if they know they're going to get some help. I did the assessing at Green Lake for 5 or 6 years, and I've been to quite a few tribunals, and I tried not to stipulate, but you can't go in. I went in against a family once. They had 3 lawyers and a paid appraiser sitting there for some lakefront property on Long Lake. And there's no way that they should have got much of a, they shouldn't have got lower to what they got. 'Cause I told the referee, I said, look, I said, they've got lake frontage. And that didn't make any difference, because I was there by myself, you know, I wasn't one of the 3 lawyers. I think if we have a good policy, that I think it'll keep some people from filing.
Commissioner
Because
Maxbauer.
why waste their time? But on the other hand, I don't want to have to sit here and say the only time we'll consider it is when the state of Michigan gets in on it, because they just don't do that. They're only doing it for the money.
All right, Commissioner Maxbauer, and then if we can get a motion on the floor.
We are not saying that we are going to say no for any other case.
It says right there, state of Michigan.
I understand that. That is the basis where we're starting. And we have to start somewhere. And therefore, I will make a motion to adopt the policy as drafted.
All right, there's a second? All right. Motion by Maxbauer, seconded by Lemkool, to approve the policy on Grand Traverse County's participation in local tax appeals as presented on page 41. Is there discussion? Commissioner Wheelock.
I won't support the policy as it's written. If you strike the first sentence and have it start at the point it says, upon request of the local unit of the county's financial participation, I will support that. But I can't support this with the state of Michigan having to be involved in order to make it work. I've never heard of such a thing as the state of Michigan being a defendant in a tax tribunal case.
Right. Would you like to amend her motion and take a vote on that?
That's, you know, I would be happy to make a motion for an amendment, whereas that the policy start with the statement of upon request of the local unit of the county's financial participation and on and on and on. Striking out that first half of the sentence.
Striking out the state of Michigan.
Striking out the portion about the state of Michigan.
All right. Is there a second to amend a motion?
You bet.
All right. Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, seconded by Commissioner Thomas for an amended motion. So just a reminder, we need to take a vote on the amended motion. And if that goes, if that's a yes, when it passes, then that will stand as the motion on the floor. All right? So, any discussion on the amended motion? Yes, Commissioner Rennie.
It's not so much on the amendment. I have a question for Chris. When they come in and argue a number like 18 million versus 29 million, what's the premise of that difference? What is the argument they're using that they're being successful with?
You know, it's, at this point, it's hard to tell. I haven't seen their appraisal, I haven't seen their background information and where they're coming from at this. I mean, I will say, I agree, it's an incredibly low number that they're coming with. And they really need to come up. So, but where they're coming from, how they came up with that number, I can't tell you.
So we don't know if it's an income analysis, something like
I
that?
haven't seen
That's
the
a huge-
background. I
that's a
mean,
huge
maybe
difference.
Mr. Korn can comment on it,
They
but
paid for it less than 3 years ago.
All right, we're going to allow Commissioner Korn to speak, or Commissioner, Supervisor Korn.
We've just,
That guy.
we've just
Congratulated,
demoted
you just got promoted.
Thank you very much, Chuck Horn, Garfield Township. I think the reason the number is so low is because the assumption is always that it's going to be a negotiated settlement. So they come in with a ridiculously lowball offer and then hope to work from there. And I think that's why the state's in, because they don't want this to be a negotiated settlement. They're calling BS. They say, let's take it to the judge.
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood. This goes before the tribunal. Does it go one way or the other, or is there negotiation? I thought it went one way or the other.
Well, the tax tribunal can declare what the value is supposed to be.
So it could be a negotiation.
It could be somewhere in between.
All right, we go with Commissioner Tom, are you complete? Okay, Commissioner Thomas and then Commissioner Lemkool. Commissioner Lemkool.
I think it was important to note that Amy from Garfield Township went into their website and did a cost analysis for their sales. And it's also it's proven that the direction that they're trying to go is way low. And so she took data right out of their own website to be able to utilize to substantiate her case. So I think, I have to give her a lot of credit for doing a lot of homework. When she talked to the prosecuting, or the
State of Michigan.
State of Michigan, that she had all this information and laid it all out. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're coming on board. But also, this is a precedent-setting case for all malls throughout the state of Michigan as to how you're going to value them.
All right. So we have, Commissioner Latham,
So either way this vote goes, the amendment or no, Garfield's going to get
yes.
help. Okay.
Yep.
That's the number one goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wheelock.
The only thing I would like to add is remember that we easily talk about the assessment being Garfield Township's assessment, but there's a three-phase process here. Garfield Township assessed this property and declared the value. Grand Traverse County Equalization Department reviewed that assessment and determined that that value was correct. And now they have the opportunity to appeal to the Michigan State Tax Tribunal. So it's not just Garfield Township that's been involved in this. Grand Traverse County has ratified that assessment and sent it forward. So that's, those are the reasons that I believe that Grand Traverse County needs to participate.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor which has been amended,
But we're voting on the amendment
and we're only voting on the amendment, and that's to strike out the state of Michigan as a requirement on here. So, so if you vote yes, that means we're amending the original motion to strike out the state of Michigan as a requirement. So let's do a roll call vote, please. The clerk can do a roll call.
Jackie?
Yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
No.
Lathrop?
No.
Rennie?
No.
Thomas?
Yep.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Motion passes. Motion passes by 1. So we have on the floor a motion as presented without the state of Michigan as a requirement. Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Maxwell.
I would like the motion read as Commissioner Wheelock wants it passed, because at this point, I want to restrict it at least maybe to a portion of the assessment costs, whatever. So please.
All right, the motion would...
I'm not willing to write a blank check, but I want to help Garfield.
All right.
We did it.
Yeah,
You would just
take the
strike out the-
introductory clause out. If
You would
it
just-
starts with if the state of Michigan.
It starts at that
All the way to
point
the
where it
comma.
says, upon the request of the local unit, if you wish. Upon the
Capital
request
U
of the
on it.
local
Just
unit.
read it
Okay, yeah.
out loud.
You would just strike out the first
I
line
want-
with a
I'll-
I
paragraph.
want it read for the public,
This is
okay?
this is the motion I'm putting in here, and then I can read the policy as well, but the motion I have is moved by Wheelock, seconded by Thomas, to adopt the policy on Grand Traverse County participation in local tax appeal. However, to strike out the portion of the policy that states if the state of Michigan agrees to defend a local tax appeal and share in the defense cost.
Correct.
That's how I have it.
Correct.
But what share?
So the motion.
The motion starts with
will
upon.
be
I
upon the
know, but what
request.
share?
No more than
10%?
25%.
It goes...
25%.
No more than.
No more
Yeah,
than.
the rest of the policy stands.
Mr.
Just that
Chairman, I'll
first
be
sentence.
happy to read the policy if
Yes,
they would, please.
just upon.
Upon
Go
the
ahead.
request of the local unit of the county's financial participation in the case, a group of county representatives consisting of the board chairman, equalization director, treasurer, administrator, controller, and finance director shall review the case with the local assessor, determine whether the potential for success is high, and make recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding county participation in the appeal. Depending on the availability of funding, the county board will consider reimbursing up to 50% of the local unit's share in the defense of the costs of the case. The maximum amount of the county's contribution to the case shall be limited to 25% of the first year's general fund revenue on the value in appeal.
So we are restricting ourselves to recommendations that are coming from
From the committee.
county, from the county,
From the committee.
From the committee.
from the committee.
Yep.
And we are restricting our fees to be up to 50% of the local unit's share with a maximum county contribution of 25% of the first year's general fund revenue.
All right, okay.
All right, so we have read the motion
I
on the,
just
we have
wanted
read the
to-
motion on the floor as it stands. Is there discussion? Commissioner Thomas?
One little more comment. I mentioned this at the 3 township meetings I've been to this week, and they all like the idea of maybe if they need it, they can get some help, so.
Okay. Anyone else on the motion? Commissioner Rennie?
Just a question for
I have another question for
Mr.
Dean.
Corrin.
Uh-oh,
I got a question for Dean.
this would be a corny answer.
Always.
We prevail on this, okay? This goes in your favor. This going to help or hurt long-term occupancy at Grand Traverse Mall?
Is it going to help or hurt their long-term
Yeah,
occupancy?
how do you feel about that?
I think it's going to be relatively neutral. I mean,
That's an answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's all.
All right. Commissioner Maxbauer?
Dean, my concern is how are you gonna budget for this? I mean, are we gonna, and it's a question for Dave as well. I mean, again, going back to the blank check argument, I want to help Garfield. I think this is a strong case, and I think we are in the right. But at the same time, I'm not willing to write a blank check. That doesn't mean I believe there's going to be a parade in here. But how are you going to budget for this?
Well, Commissioner, I think that was one of Dave's concerns from the start. That's also my concern. We have been in probably a strange period of time here. We're still in that, but we've been in this situation with tax values, property tax values since 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
We have not had a rush. I know that the townships probably, for the most part, are dealing with these matters. And Commissioner Thomas is correct. I know for a fact the township that I live in, a lot of times they stipulate. They simply don't want to fight these matters. They don't even think about that. I don't think that this is going to cause a rush to the commission chambers for your support, and I wish I could tell you how we would budget for it. Usually what we do, we watch historical data. We have no history here on this, so but you guys, you do a very good job of budgeting conservatively, and if we have requests for these, Dave and I will advise you on how we fund them, and going forward, if we need to, establish a line item in the budget for this, we will make that recommendation as to the amount.
All right. Any other questions on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Rennie?
Yeah, just for Dave or Dean, what kind of tax bill do these people face yearly at $29,500,000, roughly?
I think Dave had the millage rate, and
Yeah, it was
It's
29,575.
big. It's got to be 1.2 or
number.
something.
Find my calculator. It's 44, 45.
Would be, I guess.
It's probably more than that.
About $1.3 million.
I think $1,300,000.
About right? Sound about right? Well, that's the full county tax rate.
Yeah.
That's full, all the millages.
all the total millage.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Lathrop?
I'm a little confused about the one part of the 25% of the general fund. Like our general fund is what?
Well, this particular, if the $11 million is lost, it's going to cost our general fund about $57,000 a year. So 25% of that is somewhere around
About
14,250.
I see.
Taking out the state of Michigan language doesn't change that part of it.
Okay.
It still says we're going to limit it to 25% of what we'd lose in our general fund in 1 year,
I
in
get
the
it.
first year of that
Okay.
appeal.
I guess, not 25% of our general fund.
No,
Right.
25% of the proceeds of that appeal.
Okay, I get it.
All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Wheelock?
We beat this to death.
Well, the one point that I would make, when we talk about how we budget for this, no different than we had to budget a couple years ago when the tax tribunal took $750,000 from us.
Yep.
This is true.
We hit the facilities fund that year, folks.
Yeah, well, I know, well, what I'm saying is, if we don't defend these tribunals and the judgments go against us, that's money that we lose too.
Yep.
And we lost if I remember right, about $750,000 a couple of years ago because of decisions that were made by the tax tribunal.
That's money we don't have
And that
to
was money
budget
that we
with.
had planned on having that we didn't get.
That was actually 2 years in a row. And in most cases, as the treasurer would tell you, we're actually refunding those dollars out of your general fund, so.
We had to pay them back.
Commissioner Thomas and then Lathrop.
I didn't have my hand up, I was
Oh,
scratching
you're
my
waiting.
head.
Commissioner Lathrop.
Let's vote, let's vote.
I think I'm going to support this because it gives us a start, and I do want to help Garfield with this, it's very important. And we can always amend it later if we find it has pins and needles in it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the policy as presented, striking out the state of Michigan as a requirement. Roll call vote, please.
I thought we already took a roll call vote.
No,
No,
that
that
was
was
the
on the
amendment.
amendment, Jackie.
we had to take a vote on the amendment of the original motion. Now we have a new motion on the floor. The original motion, striking out the state of Michigan is how it works. So, okay?
You have the original.
Okay, Commissioner Lemkool,
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Rennie?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Motion passes with 1 nay. All right, thank you. You're all set? We will now move on to the items removed from the consent calendar. And that was item receive and file road commission report. Jim, if you could join us.
Thanks, Chuck.
Commissioner Rennie, you have the floor.
Good evening, Jim Cook, Grand Traverse County Road Commission.
Evening, Jim. I had a couple of constituents asking about when is brining going to happen or start? Could you give us a little summary of what that might be?
Yeah, we started actually Monday of last week. About 50% of the county was done last week, and they've been working. They actually worked on Saturday to do Grant Township, and they'll be finishing up all but Acme and Whitewater this week. That's the schedule. I don't think they planned on rain today, so we may have another township in there, maybe Union Township. Might start next week instead of this week, but yeah, it'll all be done by the end of next week.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good. Any other questions on the report? All right, Commissioner Willock.
Jim, I know that you guys have construction going on West Long Lake Road and South Long Lake Road. I'm very pleased to see the signs up that say this project funded by the Grand Traverse County Road Millage. I think that's a good thing. It lets people know see what they're getting per dollars. I have had a lot of requests about questions about the West Long Lake Road, whether or not they were getting paved shoulders. I don't know that that's the case. I'm sure that the gravel's going to be brought back up to the height of the shoulder at some point or another. The comment that I've made to all of the people is that, at least from my perspective, when I supported the road millage, I was supporting improvement of the traveled portion of the roadway, not the shoulders where you might want to walk your dog or ride your bike.
Well, you're correct. We aren't paving the shoulders. Again, it was just cost prohibitive to do that.
Well, West Long Lake Road's kind of a strange project. You guys did a lot of excavating along the sides of the road and cutting some banks back and stuff, and I think that's where people got the idea that you were going to widen the road or put widened shoulders on it. I think that's, I'm not exactly sure why that would happen, but I know there was a lot of excavation along the sides of the road there and cutting some banks back and removing some trees.
Yeah, actually, along the sides of all the roads in Grand Traverse County, they've just been neglected over the years, and so what we've been doing is we've been going out and we've actually been cutting down what we call high bank, which is not supposed to be there, a high ridge between the edge of the road and the ditch. And so we're doing that throughout the whole county. So we've had a lot of calls. People are assuming that we're running around widening the shoulders, and really what we're doing is restoring the shoulders. And again, as part of our maintenance is we're making sure that we have gravel up to the edge of the road instead of a drop-off.
Commissioner Lemkool and then Commissioner Rennie.
Yeah, yesterday I had a chance to travel Hammond to Keystone Road, and it was rather interesting because the road was backed up all the way to Hammond Road until I got to Cass. And after Cass, everything took off. And I'm just wondering if that light, maybe because of all the road work that's being done at airport, that people are using that as a go-around. And I'm wondering if you might want to look at that light as to whether or not you can readjust its time. Because when I got to the Cass and Keystone, everybody went up to 55 miles an hour, and we went all the way to Chum's Corners. But everything was backed all the way to Hammond Road.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look
You might
at it.
want to look at that.
Yeah.
For
Thank you.
most nights, it's all the way to Chum's
Well,
Corner.
I figured
At
that's
that
what it
time of
was.
night, yeah.
Yeah, I figured that's what it was, and
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was like,
No.
this light was what stopped everything.
All
It
right.
wasn't anything else,
All
so
right.
just ask.
Commissioner Rennie has the floor.
I would like to compliment the road commission on voicing the Clark repavement. Looks great. Been
Yeah.
down it a couple times.
Well, thank you. We
Shoulder
appreciate
looks
that.
good,
Yeah.
the whole thing. I think people
Yeah,
are
I
quite
mean,
happy down there about it.
There's 40 miles worth of that going on, and
Looks real
so
good
people will
what you do
be
down there.
pretty happy by the end of summer.
I see some smiles. I do. Thanks, Jim.
The other
Thank
thing I
you.
want to mention is that if you have a pothole, use Facebook, send them a note as to where it's at, and immediately they will respond and they'll put it on their list. So, I've done it twice now, and both times I've gotten a response saying, we got it on our list. So, we appreciate it.
Commissioner
How
Maxwell.
does that work for city residents?
I have not worked with the city, so I don't
So,
know.
well, I just wanted to be clear that,
If maybe the city might have a Facebook, I don't know if they do or not.
but if you're telling people all you got to do
I'm
is
talking about
talk
county.
about a pothole,
Yeah.
I mean, we have
Sure.
14,500 city
Yeah,
residents
right.
that,
Yeah, I understand.
okay,
No,
got to
but
be
the-
clear.
Yeah, we don't discriminate. We'll take reports from city, the people
I
that live
know,
in the
but
city. Yeah.
do you, okay, this is a question.
But you don't patch holes in the
Do
city.
you don't patch holes in the city, but do you pass it on to the city? The
We
information?
do, yeah.
Do you? Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Rennie.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to receive and file the road commission report.
Let's get the motion on
I'll
the floor
support.
first. Okay, we have a motion by Rennie, seconded by Commissioner Lemkool to receive and file the road commission report. Now we're in discussion. Yes, do you have something you'd like to add?
Carl Brown, Commissioner on the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. Sonny, I'd like to comment on your comment on the signs. I was helping Toby one night. He was putting one up on Boyce Road, and I stopped and talking to him. And it's amazing, a gentleman stopped on his bike and didn't realize how that project was funded. We've taken a little heat over these signs, not much, but a little bit, for spending money on them, but I think it's critical for the residents to know these are millage projects. You've paid for them. And this gentleman lived a half mile off from Clark Road and didn't know that that's where the money came from. So I think we're making a big impact. The projects are going well this year, and I'm looking for the next 2 years, the same thing. I think we're hitting the high-volume roads, and people are seeing that sign, and I think we're spending the money very wisely. So anyway, I appreciate your comment that you saw the signs and noticed, and I know a lot of other people have too. So that's it.
All right. We have a motion on the floor to receive and file. Any other comments, questions? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right. That is now received and filed. All right. That takes care of items removed from the consent calendar. We move on to item number 9, department action items. First one is the treasurer's office. Welcome.
Heidi Sheppy, Grand Traverse County Treasurer. I put a memo in, but just a quick summary. I'm asking for a half-time position to help with posting of foreclosure properties and also a staff shortage in my office. This will be the first year that I've actually physically gone out to the properties to post in my office. This activity is an eligible expense from the foreclosure fund, so there'll be no general fund expenditures. And it's a fee that's charged annually, so the continued collection, we should be able to sustain it from the fund. This will help providing additional staff for the postings, but also in our office, we have a shortage. Over the last month, I've had myself and one other person in the office at least 5 times with shortages. And again, this position won't require any general fund money, and I'll answer any questions.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
I would move to approve a part-time accounting technician for the treasurer's office.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner Wheelock. Discussion. Dave?
We didn't get a chance to talk much about this, but this person also going to be like going out to properties and boarding up windows and things like that, or do you hire somebody else to do that? on that?
We actually work with planning on that. Historically, Jeff had done that. He's not with us anymore. Virginia Coulters was the one that went out and took pictures. So I would work with Jean to see if it's a possibility. Also, we contract with Title Check. They go out and change the locks for us for the auction parcels. So it would depend on if it's going to auction, we only hold them for a couple months as far as boarding. If the land bank or the county decides to take it, that's when we would incur the cost of boarding. And then we would work, the land bank actually has a separate pool of funds for that.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Rennie.
You said a question, you said we've always paid $35 per parcel. Depending on the number of parcels, the forfeiture cost can range from $17,000 to $24,000 per year.
Correct.
So how many of these parcels are involved to get it up to that kind of number?
We are forfeiting over 700 parcels this year, and we'll forfeit, the case will be filed with Circuit Court actually this week, and we usually don't post until September, so we'll give them time to go out, and that'll also minimize the number of parcels that we post. Last year, it was about 450 that we physically had to go out and post.
Well, it was 450, but by the end of the year, I just pulled my morning packet out. There were 26 parcels
That we actually foreclosed on.
That we actually, in fact, foreclosed on in the 2014 tax foreclosures.
Yeah. So
The land bank
physically going out there
reviewed
posting
this morning.
helped reduce that number.
Would you say that the number of foreclosures is increasing or decreasing on a trend basis?
I would say actually, it's for the 2 years that I've been here, it's been 23 and 27, so it's pretty consistent. I believe I would defer to Dean.
I'm talking about the
that.
total number pursued, though, not the ones that you actually do.
Oh, it's actually gone down.
Oh, it is declining?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the last 2 years has been less than.
2008, 2009, we just seen bunches.
Yeah, in general, there are cycles, and to say that you can predict the cycle, I mean, we've had the treasurer, the last few years, we've actually purchased in total fewer delinquent taxes, and I think that since 2009, when we had probably the roughest economic climate in this area, actually the people in general have been paying their taxes at a better rate, which causes a little bit of a problem for our tax revolving fund, because we're not purchasing, which is a good thing, but that fund is a major fund for the county in whole, and that generates some additional revenue, but a lot of work for the county treasurer and her staff to do this. And I know that Heidi was reluctant to make this request. I have a staff person who helps down there when they're short, and I do support this request because she really needs more manpower to do this work.
All right. Any other comments on the motion on the floor? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve to add a .5 accounting technician to the treasurer's office. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Moving on to the DPW, you have a question on classifications. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mike Slater. I am the Director of the Public Works for the Grand Traverse County. Recently, our manager, George Champlin, who had been with us for around 25 years, retired. And through that process of restructuring the DPW, I was asked by the Finance Committee, which is the committee of the 5 townships that we represent, to look into all the classifications at the DPW at that time. In doing so, I recognize that although the field staff are appropriately classified as utility workers, utility specialists. The office staff are not. They are kind of classified in the county system as office clerks or secretaries, even though the work they perform is utility-related in nature. So in doing that restructuring, I'm kind of in a gray area in the fact that the DPW is a distinct branch of the county government, and the fact that all of our revenues are generated by servicing the townships on their sewer and water utilities. So any work that we do is tracked, whether it be in the field or in the office, and then is charged directly to the townships for the works we perform. There's no general fund revenue in the department. So my first order of business was to get the approval from the Finance Committee. These would be the townships that actually pay the bills, and then get approval from the Board of Public Works, and then seek your approval to request that the Human Resource Department look at the classifications as they currently exist, review them, and see if there is a need to classify these staff in the office as utility, and if there is a difference between the office clerk, secretarial positions, et cetera, to then classify them appropriately. You've had a freeze on classifications for the last few years, so HR department did not feel it appropriate that they take this on until the Board of Commissioners gives its approval. So that's what I am seeking tonight, and I hope I've given you enough information and background information in your packet to see that the type of work we perform, the fact that it's been through the Finance Committee, they reviewed it, and then where your position is with regard to this. So I'm open for any questions at this point.
All right, we'll go with Commissioner Maxbauer first.
I have a quick question for legal counsel. I read what former prosecutor Al Schneider wrote.
Right.
Do I understand his opinion as saying these individuals are really work for the Board of Public Works?
Right. Yeah,
And why are we involved in their classifications?
Because they're Grand Traverse County employees.
I understand that part,
Right.
but is that really what the prosecutor says?
His opinion does say that. He looked at the statutes and said that it is the responsibility of the Public Works Board. That person reports directly to the Public Works Board.
Okay, and I've got that. So if they report directly to the Public Works Board, why are we involved in classifications?
But I'm not sure I can answer that.
Because if this is up to as I read what Al Schneider wrote, if this is up to the Public Works Board, then we shouldn't be involved.
That's the gray area I'm in, because I know that the Board of Public Works has an agreement with the county to provide the employees for the Public Works, and they are paid directly from the revenues we receive from the townships, but they are in the county's union. Local union representation is through the county, and therefore the classification request. That's why I say I'm kind of a real gray area of hoops that I need to jump here, but I feel this is one that is part of that ladder.
All right, we got Commissioner Lathrop and then Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, the pavilions is kind of like this. They have their own funding, right? And they have their own, do they manage their own job classifications? No?
County employees.
They're not county employees?
No.
These guys are? Okay.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, I think if I read Al Schneider's memo, he's talking specifically about the director of the Department of Public Works, not necessarily the clerical staff and the field staff. Those people are actually members of the Teamsters union that we bargain with.
That's correct.
So I think there's a difference between the director, who was a supervisor and was not part of the union, compared to the line workers that are working in the field. And as far as from my perspective, and I'm prepared to make a motion right now, we went on record of not supporting any reclassifications for an extended length of time, and I would move that we notify the Board of Public Works that we will not be approving any reclassifications in their department at this time.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Commissioner Lemkool.
I guess, this is kind of a policy issue, and whether or not, when we start doing department by department, what would be the disadvantage or advantage of doing in a department like this in comparison to the rest of the employees? I'm really struggling with this.
We already denied the Commission on Aging.
Well,
They came to us and we denied theirs,
Yeah.
and they're all county employees and they're all funded by the millage.
but I'm just wondering if we decided, not tonight or some other time, to look at department by department by department to do a classification plan, rather than by doing all of it, what's the advantage or disadvantage of doing that? That's my question.
Well, we'd have to, Dave and Jenny, you'd have to weigh in on this if you could.
I'll shoot from the hip until Jen gets up there. But
As she
if
slides
they're
out
going
the
to
back
be employees of the county and part of the county's classification system, doing this out of sync with everything else, you may end up, when you actually do a classification study and put people above that have more responsibility and people below that have less,
Yeah,
and
do
people in between that have intermediate responsibility, when you finally get your internal equity built so that the person with the least requirements for the job and responsibility for your accuracy, and the ones with the most are properly stratified throughout your organization, these people will be either reclassified or red circled.
They can
I mean,
bump
you make a mess out of things when you start taking them off.
And people can bump from one
by
department to
one.
another, right?
Okay, Jen.
Did a regular employee
they're laid
bump
off.
into,
That's, the bumping procedure only goes into effect when someone's laid off from a position. So not in a normal, like, reclassification, you're not eligible for bumping rights.
but if we did do a layoff, somebody from that department could bump into someplace else.
Correct,
And so that's the reason we have to deny.
all of these employees but one are in the Teamsters General Union and do have bumping rights.
All right.
Should, yep.
Well,
bump people-
it seems to me that, based on the past discussions and the philosophy of the Board of Commissioners, is that we were going to ask Jen at some point in time, based on her strategic plan, working with Dave, to come up with a recommendation on how they might proceed with and how to actually go about doing a new classification plan. And that was part of our goals for the year. And that's something that I'm sure that they're still thinking and working on. And the goal was that once we approve those two items, then we would just set forth a classification study on everyone and not just a particular department or individual. Am I correct on that, or am I off?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us?
It's been so many years since the classification study's been done. I've been here 4.5 years and one hasn't been done. So
Yes.
it's, even before that we really need to look at everybody,
Yes.
not just doing one department.
I
It
know.
really, because some are going to go up in reality, some are going to go down. And they need, that should be looked at as a whole to really even provide you as commissioners with how it's going to affect the budget in total,
So
not just
before-
piece
so before I
here and
call-
there and everywhere.
Before I call on Commissioner Wheeler, just a quick follow-up. Do you have an update on how you might want to proceed with a classification, or you want to put it on the agenda later on in the year, or what? What do you want to do?
Dave is waiting.
Well, I do want to put it on the agenda later on in the year, but I can tell you this today. We have looked at it. We will need from the board at some point in the very near future the ability to go out for a request for qualifications and to negotiate with those qualified vendors on a price for for conducting a classification study for all of our employees. And then I've been working on how to implement that study. We did have quite a significant increase in fund balance as a result of our 2013 audit. We found that we went up $1 million in our fund balance. That's a great thing. I think that a cost of a study will be less than $100,000, but the implementation cost is the big hang-up, so you have to implement it in phases and limit any kind of increases that someone might get to a certain percentage per year, and then phase it in over a period of 2 or 3 years. That way the county can afford to do it. We are going to be coming into you next with a request to go out for qualifications. That's where we are with it.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, I have a couple points. One, you know, we always hear about these reclassifications. Well, their job is different. There is not a job in this county, whether it's public or private, that hasn't changed over the last few years. You know, the difference in technology, the difference in equipment, the difference of less people trying to do every business in the community trying to do less with more. Every job is different. You know, the county commissioners' jobs are different. There was 9 of us sitting here a year and a half ago. Now there's 7. You know, the workload is the same, or maybe increased, but there's less of us trying to get it done. Everyone's job is different than it was before. But is your job more different than somebody else's job? And that's what the classification study does. You know, I personally believe, you know, and it's a separate issue, but I believe we can do this classification study in-house. We spent a lot of time and a lot of effort doing employee surveys and very detailed job descriptions for all of the positions that the county had a few years ago. The Siegel study wasn't perfect by a long ways, but what it did do is give us that information pretty thoroughly as far as the employee surveys, and the job descriptions in that document are pretty good. You know, I'm sure they have to be tweaked because the jobs are different now than they were, what, 7 years ago? You know, 6 years ago when the study was done. So, you know, I believe that, you know, that's what HR departments do, is they evaluate human resource needs. And I would certainly like to have a real frank discussion before we talk about spending $100,000 contracting with someone to do a classification study, if we have the ability to do it in-house.
All right, Commissioner Maxbauer, and then we'll go to Mike.
Well, I greatly appreciate Commissioner Wheelock looking at me when he says the Siegel study isn't perfect, because as soon as I came on the county board, I began to criticize it, and my major criticism with the Siegel study was there were no private sector comparisons that I could see when there were opportunities for private sector comparisons. And so, you know, if you're not going to do a study that compares with private sector similar jobs, I'm not going to support anything in that regard. The second thing I have to say is, and I have said this before, and I know I emailed you this, asking you, when we have a job posting, I'd like to know how many applicants we have. Because I really do believe that that is a major indicator of whether or not we are paying a fair wage. If you have 100 applicants for one position, my guess is you're paying a fair wage and benefit package. You know, when people are lined up at the door, when you can't find somebody to take a position, and I know we have positions that are along those lines. What comes to mind is the equalization director. It's extremely difficult to get somebody with those qualifications. You have to offer a little extra money in order to get somebody, because they're just not out there. There aren't that many people with those qualifications.
All right, I might want to make a good point. Might want to make a suggestion that
You're
that
zipping me up, okay.
No,
It's all right.
no. What I want to do is
There's two issues.
Yeah, there's 2 issues, and what we might, with the consent of the board, is that the whole discussion about how we approach and when do we begin and what is the criteria of a classification plan. Let's put that on an agenda item, maybe at next month's RMA or whatever.
Okay.
And to give staff some time to think about it, and we can get into some more discussion about it, give you some thoughts and thinking about it. And then if we can come back to the actual request, we have a motion and a second on the floor to deny the request based on the discussion that's occurring, that, you know, we really want to work as one classification plan and study and not separately. Mike, do you have anything to add before we
I would like
vote?
to just briefly, as I probably won't be here when this gets taken up, I'm retiring next month, But I would, and the intent is not to put an additional burden on HR at all, but I would request that when a classification study is being done, that these employees be looked at as utility-related employees rather than just a secretarial position or office clerk position, because they do far, in my mind, the work they do is different in its orientation, and the fact that we do utility work for 5 different townships, which entails working within the bounds of their particular ordinances. Many of them have numerous amendments to them as they've changed through the years, so the technical aspect of it in billing the proper rates for sewer leads, water leads, laterals, benefit charges, etc., is very complex, and it does take a extra level of skill, if you will, that I see in their applications to the jobs they perform every day.
Okay. Just a suggestion, thank you, Mike. Just a suggestion to the motion on the floor is to deny the request at this time. If you don't mind, if we can just add that we would send a letter to the chairman or Mike of the Board of Public Works, just indicating that we're going to address classifications as a whole within the county, not within the single department, and we'll have some future discussions on it this year regarding classifications. Okay, all right. All right, I just want to, if they're looking for a written response, I just don't want to like say, we're not doing it, or, you know, the request is no, we're going to look at this whole thing in a different way.
At this time, I believe.
Okay, all right. As long as you're comfortable that we can send a message or a letter or memo to those folks regarding this discussion. Commissioner Rennie.
So with this vote, a yes vote means we're not going to do this? Is that what we're saying?
A yes vote means that we're not going to do this study at this time. All right, any other discussion? All right, the motion on the floor is to deny the request at this time. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Rennie?
Yes.
Thomas?
No.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. All right, motion passes with 1 nay. That means it's a no. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks. Next item is Safe Haven Grant Finance. Dean?
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes.
like to make a motion to authorize the contract with Aaron House to perform the services of project coordinator for the Safe Havens grant.
Okay.
Second that?
A move by Commissioner Lemkool, seconded by Commissioner Rennie to approve the Safe Haven grants as presented. Discussion. Dean, did you have anything on that?
Yes, but I'll be brief. Just a refresher, jog everyone's memory. The county did receive a $500,000 grant. Those items and that approval was formalized by the board in last October. In working through the special conditions, which I attached that, which is page 32, the requirement for the project coordinator is that they be a representative of the county. And since Aaron has been doing the work on the initial grant, in discussing this with the federal person that we work with, we could satisfy that requirement, but there has to be a contract between the county and that individual. I did have Chris review the contract, which we basically adapted from what Child and Family Services was using for the initial grant, and the hourly rate here is less. It's lower than what it was with the initial grant by $5. So Aaron House is actually serving in that capacity, and I would hope that the board does approve this.
Okay, any other
action.
comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, the motion on the floor is to authorize the contract with Aaron House to perform the services of project coordinator for the Safe Havens grants. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Moving on to the transfer of paying agent and bond registrar, page 36. Dave, you want to take that one, or Dean?
Let me, if Dave
go
doesn't
ahead.
mind, and Heidi's here too, and Heidi, thank you for staying. This issue actually was brought up at the Building Authority meeting in May. I was not there, but The question was, why are the fees that are associated with our various bond issues, they were increasing? Heidi did discuss that with John Axe, and John is recommending that we transfer those arrangements to Huntington National Bank. There's a letter in your packet that was drafted by, I think, Deborah in John's office that would authorize that transfer of responsibility. And in discussing this, Dave and Heidi and I did want you to be aware of this, and we're asking for the treasurer's approval to sign that document to make that happen.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion.
Commissioner Rennie, you move for
Make a
approval?
or move to
Okay, is there a second?
approve this county treasurer transfer, the paying agent and bond register relationship to Huntington National Bank from the Mellon Bank, I guess it is.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Rennie, is there a second? Second by Commissioner
over there.
Second by Commissioner Thomas. Discussion. Commissioner Lemko.
Does this need to be immediate effect?
I don't think so. I was going through the, Heidi, do you know? I think we do have to have this in place, though.
So can the motion state that this should be immediate effect?
Sure.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the other question I have is the Exhibit A. Is this the current balance on the bonds, or is this the balance that was started?
Those are the original.
The original balances?
Correct. If they're refunding bonds, they're the refunding amount. And we did have one item here that we had to clean up in the document. But Heidi is correct. It would be best if you could make this, approve this immediately, because I think we have a July 1st.
Okay, as a motion maker and second agree, immediate action of the Board of Commissioners? All right, let the record reflect that. Further discussion on the motion on the floor? Other than just a brief disclosure, I was employed by Huntington National Bank, but I'm not receiving any post-retirement benefits, so I discussed that with counsel, and I do not have a conflict. So, hearing that, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
We need a...
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote for the immediate approval.
Commissioner Lathrop?
Yes.
Rennie?
Is that Rennie? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you for that reminder. Moving on to unfinished business, we've already taken care of that. So we move on to new business, which is Mr. Benda's administration memorandum requesting temporary clerical assistance. Dave Benda, you have the floor.
Okay, we have a vacancy in my office, our office of 2, so we're down to me.
How you do it?
And we have, you have 2 other people inside my office, but one is charged to the Central Services Fund and pretty much does website committee and does centralized purchasing now. But she's still doing the mail and still doing the copiers and still doing all the things she was doing before. And Chris Kramer, who's the board, the person who puts together board packets and does all the things for the board. They're great help and they're a great team, but we are just going to feel like nobody can take any moments off until we get some help in there. So we're asking for a 20-hour-a-week temporary position, probably for
Hands are going
most of the
up.
summer.
All right. Commissioner Max Bauer.
I would move to approve a temporary office specialist position to assist the administration office for up to 20 hours per week. And I'm surprised you've lasted this long.
All right, and that's seconded by Commissioner Lathrop. Discussion. Commissioner Lathrop and then Commissioner Wheelock.
I hope you can find someone as great as Linda. I really felt that she was a friend to all of us on this board. I'm going to miss her. She was a great part of the team.
Okay. Commissioner Wheelock.
I hope that we're making this vote knowingly that this is a stopgap measure. I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to have a real legitimate discussion about a deputy administrator, an executive, assistant executive, whatever you want to call it. This is the opportunity for us to do that. Whether that person be a project manager that we give specific projects to. I know Herb and Dave and I have had some discussions about a project manager that could be responsible for dealing with the Boardman River dams, for example, and that's what they do. But, this 20-hour-a-week person does not meet our needs. It's a stopgap, but it does not meet our needs. We truly have to have a real legitimate discussion about where we're going to go with administration long-term.
Commissioner
That was my comment, exactly.
All right. Commissioner Lathrop.
Oh, and so we can look for Dave for advice on that, right?
Yeah, I've been looking at different alternatives, and, we are in tight financial times. It's very difficult for me to recommend an increase in staffing for my office when I'm not recommending increases in staffing for anyone else's. And I'm willing to, put in the time and do the work, just like everyone else is. But there's a time where there's too many things that need to be done, and there's just not enough staff to do it. And we're looking at different ways of trying to address that. An office manager position is not the position I need in my office. But a deputy administrator is a lot higher classification than an office manager, and we're looking at just different ways of approaching it for, not only for the short term, but for the long term. So I'm working with Jen Seaman, and I'm working with my current staff, and we're going to come up with a proposal for you.
All right. Good. Commissioner Redding, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to echo Commissioner Lathrop's statement about Linda Nelson. Helped me a great deal, and always had a kind word. Pleasant doing business with her.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else on the motion on the floor? You want immediate approval on that? Get going?
Yes, please.
All right. Motion maker and second agree with immediate approval on this motion?
Yes.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Rennie?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Motion passes. Immediate approval.
Thank you very much.
Good work. Okay, that leads us to, no other items under new business, leads us to second public comment. Yes, come on up and introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Matt Lundy, 3244 Pembroke, Traverse City. I know that the county is considering expanding the county jail, and I just want to make a short statement about that and my feelings on it. Personally, I feel that we don't need to expand any further than we are, not only because this is going to save the county money in the short term in the building of, but also in the long term, and I want to explain why. When I was younger, I had very little sympathy for those that broke the law and wanted to see them punished as harshly as possible. However, with age, I've kind of changed my position on this matter. I think that there's a real cost to the community when we put somebody away, not only for the amount of money that we're paying to have them stay at the jail, but also for the money that they're not making and spending in the actual community. Furthermore, once they get out, a lot of times, unfortunately, our society doesn't really extend the Christian values of compassion and forgiveness to those that have been convicted of a crime and paid their debt. Because of this, they often end up on government welfare, food stamps, which they are entitled to, especially those that just served at the county level. And I think that it's really the corrections' job to make their inmates change their ways and become productive members of society. And I think keeping the jail small is a way that will incentivize us to do this and come up with more creative means of punishment that will help reform those that have committed crimes in the past, as well as extend to them the compassion and forgiveness that they really deserve, having paid their debts. So I would like you to consider these comments while you're considering expanding the jail, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We'll move on to Commissioner Committee reports. Anyone have anything for the cause? Commissioner Rennie. Commissioner Lemko.
Just to let you know that we did get an email about the clock tower. Chris, I appreciate your response to that.
I was going to talk about that,
Okay,
because I
good.
promised him I would.
Good. But also, looks like the PRN is going to be meeting with the Council of Governments tomorrow on the
9
public,
a.m.
on parks, 9 a.m., so that'll be a good thing.
Okay, Commissioner Rennie.
Yeah, and last Saturday, did a ribbon cutting, North Country Trail System in Fife Lake on the Manistee River by the rest stop. This is a trail that is 4,600 miles long. It goes from eastern New York to North Dakota. Most of the miles go through the state of Michigan. They put a loop in the trail at Fife Lake. They hope to increase their economic activity out there, and they're very excited about this trail system. Also went to a very nice ceremony in Kingsley, the Veterans Memorial that they had a service on. It was very nice. That was last Friday. And then Saturday we had the Kingsley Adams Fly Festival, which turned out to be very nice and a very nice day for that. Thanks.
All right, good report. Commissioner Maxbauer.
Well, I was going to wait until we got to notices and announcements, but you all received an email this morning from one of our constituents who questioned why we had a $70,000 goal for the clock, the courthouse clock, and said that originally the county board said we only needed $8,000 or $10,000, and you know that's a more realistic goal. And I explained it to him as such, and I will explain it to everyone. $7,500 is what the estimate is for the chime, to replace the chime, to get the clock to have that wonderful sound. The inside workings of the clock are over 100 years old, and those parts are wearing out. Facilities has estimated that those parts will cost between $35,000 and $40,000 to replace. If we do not replace those parts, eventually it doesn't matter if the chime works or not, because the clock won't chime because the clock doesn't work. Hence, you have $7,500 to $10,000 to fix the chime, another $35,000 or $40,000 to fix the inner workings. Now we come to the face of the clock. The face of the clock is wood. The hands on the clock are wood. Those hands are also over 100 years old, and as Danny Brown told me and told us, he came in front of the board and said it will not surprise him to one day go over to the courthouse and not see the face on the clock, because the hands are wearing out, they're going to fall off, and the face of the clock, the glass, is leaded glass, and that also needs to be replaced. That is an additional $20,000. Hence, the $70,000 goal. What I did tell the constituent is I would make a public appeal, and that's what I'm doing now. If there are any volunteer grant writers out there who know anything about historical grant writing, this is an historical building. We would appreciate your help, and you can contact me, and I will do what I can to help you write the grant and get you the information that you need so that we might be able to fix the clock. My telephone number is 231-421-1417. And regarding the gentleman's public comment about the jail, Commissioner Wheelock and I were there this morning for a meeting with Captain Hall, and we went through the jail. I would encourage the gentleman who spoke to contact Mr. Hall, or Captain Hall. He can get a tour of the jail. It is important, if someone has questions of what the conditions are at the jail, what the concerns are at the jail, to contact Captain Hall. Captain Hall will give you a tour of the jail. Now, please understand he's not going to drop whatever he's doing to give the tour. So please make a telephone call, make an appropriate appointment. but Captain Hall is more than willing and wants the public to be educated about the conditions that we have over at the jail. We have some problems that have to be fixed. The question is, how best to fix them.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioner committee reports?
Oh, just a reminder about our meeting tomorrow from 9 till 3 about the jail.
Yep.
It'll be right here.
Right here. All right.
So, and it's open to the public, and we will be televising them, right?
That's correct.
Will be televised or recorded?
I believe it'll be recorded.
I think it's going to be recorded.
All right.
I need to know that it is going to be recorded.
Yes.
It'll be live.
Oh, it'll be live.
So it's not going to be recorded?
It'll be live and
Live and
recorded.
And recorded, okay, because I'm going to need a copy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything under notices and announcements? I know we've kind of cleared a couple things.
I would just note that, Chris is right. We did do the tour this morning. I was invited to do an individual interview with the NIC people, having been around a while and been through the last process. My interview primarily focused on what we did with the Blue Ribbon Committee 10 years ago and what we've done about expanding community corrections since that time. And that was basically what my 45-minute interview talked about. And then we did a jail tour. We started at probably 20 after 10, and it was afternoon before we got done. So
I didn't get home till 1.
There was a lot of time going through and talking about, our particular jail, its deficiencies, its strong periods. The point that, I made with these people this morning, and I've made with everyone I have ever talked to about the condition of our current jail, if it were not for the quality employees that we have in our corrections department and our facilities department, we would be in real trouble. I've had opportunity to do work in some other jails that are, were basically state-of-the-art facilities when they were built, in the last 20 years, and they are a dump compared to the jail that we have that primarily was built in 1964 and remodeled in 1988.
And it's not just correction staff, it's facility staff.
Absolutely.
Facility staff,
That's what I
have to
said,
tell you,
both.
what they're dealing with over there is, we were over there in one room, and the ceiling, a pipe is burst, and and the plumber was walking through with us, and Danny says, well, I know what you're going to be doing this afternoon, But they really...
Danny came in carrying an umbrella, so I'm not sure.
The facility staff deserves applause as well as the corrections.
Commissioner Rennie.
I've been to several township meetings since we started talking about this issue, and there's a lot of angst in the public about paying for it. For real.
It's a hard sell.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that. Anyone else on announcements and notices? Okay, we don't have a closed session, is that correct? Oh, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Wheelock, seconded by Rennie. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.
For practical purpose, I've been here for 12 hours today already.